T-Dog, J-Boy, and me, I'm Lugs. Our pride and joy is pumping our mugs. Be careful, kids, it could get rough. We're flipping our lids on sports and other stuff.
Coming to you from outside the George Hallis Memorial Mausoleum, where a candle is lighted in the window, it's hope for the Bears. This is Sport Weasel Central. I'm Lugs.
I'm J-Boy.
And I'm T-Dog.
Yes, sir. NFL free agency's upon us. Trades, roster moves, shuffling everywhere. And Lugs is talking to George Hallis in his sleep. We love that part. And, oh gosh, it's March Madness, by the way, tipping off. But let's start with that blockbuster. Let's talk about the Bears. They traded the number 1 overall pick to Carolina, the Panthers, for star receiver DJ Moore and a boatload of picks in 23, 24, and 25. Now, Lugs, I'm going to startle you with this stat. A stat worth mentioning. If DJ Moore, yes, that man there, had been a Bear for the last 5 years, he would already be their all-time leading receiver. What do you say about that?
I'm not surprised. I mean, you know, they've had brand X receivers for at least 45 or 50
Mushin
years.
Muhammad?
But I got to give it, you know, I have hammered on the front office of the Bears because, you know, in my estimation, they haven't had a good pick since they picked Butkus in 63. But this whole move shows some, well, testosterone, let's just put it that way. And it says to me that they believe in Fields, and now he has that number 1 receiver, no doubt about it. And they have other receivers that are good. So Fields next year, we will know whether he is NFL worthy or not. And so I'm glad to see it. And the Panthers, they obviously need a quarterback. I guess they got Andy Dalton as the backup or whatever the last I saw. So they'll have somebody to mentor whomever they pick out of Stroud, Levis, Young, and Richardson. So what do you think, Dog? Are you sitting on cloud 9?
Wait a minute. I got to stop you for a second. Dick Butkus was the 1965 draft, just for our fans out there, our crack research team. And T-Dog, wait. Here's one. This scares me to tell you that the great Johnny Morris, who laced up the shoes from 1958 to 67, is the Bears' all-time leading receiver with over 5,000 yards. Dude, he was born in 1935. He's 87 years old. What is happening?
Well, think about this. It goes hand in hand with the last great quarterback for Chicago, Sid Luckman. So, I mean, those two things do go together.
True. That's true.
So, but regardless of the history of the past, I guess we'll start with the Bears. I think this is a win-win for both sides, and I'll get into why. For the Bears, it's a win because kind of like what Lugs talked about, it shows confidence in Justin Fields, and also it'll help them evaluate him this year in case maybe next year they want to go a different direction. DJ Moore is a legitimate number 1 receiver. Now, you can debate where he ranks in terms of number 1s, but he's a legitimate number 1 receiver. He has had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. When you particularly look at who his quarterbacks were, it was unfortunately Teddy Bridgewater when he was on his way to becoming a journeyman with the Carolina Panthers. It was like Kyle Allen. It was, Sam Darnold. So he's never had a very talented quarterback of the talent I think Fields has. So they acquired him. They were already able to stay in the top 10, got a second-round pick this year, got a 2024 first-round pick next year, and they have a 2025 second-rounder. So – and I like it because this Bears team, it has holes everywhere. So they just need draft picks to allow them to draft young players that are hopefully high in the draft. So obviously it's a crapshoot, but the chances are higher that you probably hit on the higher end players and maybe, the 5th, in the 7th round beyond. So, and then you have him cost controlled for at least 4 years. And, from the Panthers side, they haven't had good quarterback play since Cam Newton in 2018. Last year when we were champion, Wilkes to possibly get the job, they have a good offensive line. They have a good defense. Obviously, getting rid of DJ Moore, you look at their skill position players because they also the second round draft pick they gave up was actually the 49ers draft pick that they got by dealing McCaffrey last offseason. So like their skill positions aren't great, but again, they can eat it for 1 year at skill position. And I'm not saying they can't even acquire someone maybe half decent this year, but they just want to make sure they get their quarterback. And it sounds like it's going to be CJ Stroud. So
agreed. Lugs, you think it's Stroud for the Panthers out of Carolina?
Yeah, probably. I would put Bryce Young second, and I assume that whoever is left, the Texans will pick that other quarterback. I think Levis is a project, and even though Anthony Richardson just looks like a monster, other than one game, he's never really proven himself, and he could turn that around. But he's definitely a physical specimen. So, yeah, like Dog said, it's a good trade for both teams. Both teams needed the assets that they picked up.
And here I thought Willie Gault would have been the all-time Bears receiver.
You're still stuck on that.
85. I mean, Johnny Morris did sports when I was a kid on Channel 2. I was so young, I didn't know he was a Bear, okay? That's how old that dude was. All right, so what about I want to move on to this one. Jimmy Garoppolo is now a Raider. You like this, Lugs?
Yeah. I mean, he obviously he knows Josh McDaniels, and he'll bring stability to the locker room. I don't think it may be a bit of an upgrade, but Derek Carr is a fine quarterback, and I'm glad to see that he landed at the Saints and will show himself to be who he is down there. But yeah, Garoppolo, that makes all the sense in the world. And I guess they just picked up, I'm forgetting the kid's name, the receiver from New England.
Jacoby Meyer.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to make get ready. It's a wild ass prediction.
Right. Yep.
I think the hoodie is going to tank this year just so they can get Caleb Williams. I think he's trading every asset that he has. And because he's the only coach in the NFL, well, maybe Andy Reid, that could go ahead and say, I'm going to let this one tank just so he can get himself another Tom Brady. So anyway, good for Jimmy Garoppolo.
What do you think, T-Dog? You like that Raider move?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think we're going to maybe talk about the Raiders draft pick down the road. The good thing for them is it was 3 years, $72 million contract. I think if you really look inside the guts of it, like they can get out after a year, possibly 2. So I don't think this stops them from drafting a quarterback. Obviously, he knows Josh McDaniels' system because he was with him in New England. Because of that, I think he is maybe upgrade over Carr in terms of just his ability to maybe just quickly go through things. But overall, I think it's a downgrade just because Derek Carr, barring the year where he was out with a broken back, and he still, I think, played through a few games with it. Garoppolo doesn't stay healthy. So, and their backup, Jarrett Stidham, was scooped up by the Broncos. So they currently only have Garoppolo, I believe, on contract. So, I think they're going to draft a quarterback. I don't know when in this upcoming draft, but they're going to have to. Jacoby Myers, again, it's a guy who knows Josh McDaniels' system. And they also offloaded Darren Waller. That he was traded to the Giants. So, again, if you're asking me, obviously Darren Waller's had problems staying healthy, which I understand, but the ceiling of what Darren Waller can do for your offense versus Jacoby Meyer. Again, this is why I sold all the stocks on Josh McDaniels. He likes all these guys who are solid and smart, but like don't have any like real juice to make big game breaking plays. And if they do well, he's like, see how smart I am, instead of like, at the end of the year, I have this many W's because my players are awesome. It's more to be like how smart he is. So like I said, I'm okay with it. I hopefully they draft somebody to be the guy down the road 3 years, because it's not going to be Garoppolo.
Yeah, and Garoppolo, I think he's one of the luckiest guys around in
true.
that the Raiders this year, they've got some offensive firepower. I mean, that receiving core, with Devontae Adams, I mean, he couldn't ask for anything better, I don't think.
Well, here's the funny thing, though. Devontae Adams sent out a tweet where I don't know how happy he is about the situation. So maybe Devontae's on the team this year.
Carr was his buddy, right? Derek Carr was his old classmate.
Yeah. From Fresno State. Yeah. So, and, he would have been fine if they got Aaron Rodgers. But, again, you look at the personality of Aaron Rodgers, there's no way in hell Josh McDaniels or vice versa were going to put up with each other. So that was never in the cards to begin with.
And speaking of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, what do you want to speak about?
Are the Jets just going to back the Brinks truck up to his house? What's going on here?
It's a hostage situation, man. It's I don't know.
To be fair to what J-Boy's saying, let's just put it this way. And this is why, credit to Bob McGinn with that column that came out like a month ago or whatever, where he obviously still has sources within the Green Bay Packers facility where, they talked about if he was still on the team next year, he'd be the backup to Jordan Love. You understand why? Because, all right, so free agency tampering started Monday. Yeah. Obviously, none of these become official till Wednesday. But unfortunately, because of how big his contract is and obviously how it'll affect the Jets cap and how it'll affect the Green Bay cap, both teams have essentially not been able to really be a part of large parts of free agency because of this. So, like, he's holding them up, just like how he asked for a trade on draft night like 2 years ago and then, like, got a ridiculous contract last year and then didn't come into training camp to help out all the young wide receivers.
Right.
It's just more of – and then on top of it, Aaron Rodgers supposedly – Diana Racina with ESPN has reported – he's provided the Jets with a wish list, and Alan Lazard, which the Jets got Alan Lazard.
Randall Cobb.
Mercedes Lewis, who's a tight end who's 39 years old, and Odell Beckham, who's had multiple ACL injuries. I don't know.
Randall Cobb's good days are beyond.
Yeah, we all love Randall Cobb.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. And again, I don't dislike Alan Lazard, but he got 4 years, $44 million for a guy who's a third wide receiver. Garrett Wilson is not getting paid anywhere what Alan Lazard is. Garrett Wilson's like a legitimate number one receiver on the Jets as just entering his second year. And they have Elijah Moore, who I think is way more talented than what his production's been. He's going to have to be behind Alan Lazard. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just continuing the saga of the sadness that is Aaron Rodgers.
Otherwise known as El Diva. I mean,
that's that singing group, isn't it? Those Italian guys who come out and they do a little. Oh.
Well, the other quarterback that interests me is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Apparently, back in September, Ravens offered to guarantee him $200 million, and he didn't think that was good enough. I think it's going to be a rude awakening for Lamar because with Atlanta getting Taylor Heineke, that sort of closes the door on that quarterback room. The Miami thing's closed. I don't know where he's going to go. San Francisco, would they bother? I mean, he's just it's just not there.
I was just saying, I'm just going to cut in real quick just on what you're saying. San Francisco, they signed Sam Darnold. So,
yeah, it's
crazy.
I don't know where he goes. At this point. I mean, he has to play for Baltimore, and he'll get, I think, $30 million plus for the 1 year. But he would benefit from an agent. He really would.
There are two teams that I'll throw out that are intriguing that he could go to. Now, I'm not saying they want to go this route, but there are two teams that you haven't said that could maybe do the Lamar thing. And I think they weren't one of the four. I don't think they're one of the four that like the instant the Ravens are like non-exclusive contract. Atlanta Panthers. I forget the other two teams. Like we're not negotiating with.
Who
Lamar.
are they? Who do you think?
I think if you look at it, because obviously now with the Panthers jumping, and obviously maybe Houston has another team that or another quarterback, but now the Colts, who looked like they were going to be trade partners with the Bears, maybe they wanted Stroud or whatever. So what's to stop them from going after Lamar? Because again, Shane Steichen, he had a quarterback who mobility was a big part of their game plan when he was with the Eagles, right? And wouldn't you rather go with Lamar than say Anthony Richardson or let's say Will Levis? Wouldn't you rather? I know that's a lot.
He's proven.
Yeah, he's he's MVP the second year of his career. So, and I also think Detroit Lions.
Interesting.
Yeah, but who's gonna come up? I mean, he wants the whole contract guaranteed.
Right.
I just don't see any team doing that. Cleveland did that because they were just desperate.
Stupid. Let's start with that.
And the other problem is with certain teams, they couldn't negotiate. Like the Raiders came out and said they couldn't negotiate, which is understandable because this goes back to even the Khalil Mack trade between the Raiders and the Bears. When you give guaranteed money, it has to be set aside in an escrow account. So that the player doesn't get screwed over. The team has to actually make sure they have that amount of money in place, and it's essentially locked away for the amount of duration of that contract so that they're guaranteed to get that money. So if you don't have that money just sitting around, if you're not like a Jimmy Haslam, who obviously has, successful businesses. So like he has more money than these mom and pop places like the Rooney families with the Steelers and the Maras and even the McCaskies with Chicago. If you don't have that big business background, you probably don't have as much money just to like put in an escrow account. So
these last 5 minutes of the program brought to you by Merrill Lynch. As we talk about escrow accounts, there are 23 area locations. There's one near you. Just dial 1-800. I got lots of money. That's what Lamar wants.
Yeah,
true enough. I was just going to say, could you imagine the meeting with Irsay and Lamar? I mean, that would be like guys that would need definite translators. They'd have to go to the UN to negotiate that contract.
Well, hopefully, at least for hopefully for Jim Irsay, he doesn't stay in the bathroom for an hour because supposedly that's the thing that soured Josh McDaniels on becoming the head coach of the Colts. Is he met with Josh McDaniels and his wife and he went in the bathroom. And he stayed in there for an hour. And his wife's like, "Are you really going to work for this guy?"
So with all the activity, I don't think I do not.
He
think
is an old man, but okay,
the Colts. I don't think the Colts will get Bryce Young. I don't think they'll get there. I think Will Levis is their guy if they can't work something out. That I'll just toss it out.
That was my shtick about 3 weeks ago. I said Levis would be a fit for those boys.
Is there an echo in here? I think there is.
But they've got to have somebody in they've got to have something in the interim.
Yeah, they got to do something for sure. I hope they can find it. But don't you think this draft will be more about I like that quarterback, therefore I will go for him? You know what I mean? Not necessarily like X's and O's, but like I got a feeling about this guy because it's such a weird arrangement of quarterbacks. It's not like they're all great. Stroud, rises to the top. But after that, it's kind of like, well, I like that guy, but I don't like this guy. Isn't it going to be kind of like throwing darts with some of these guys? I don't know.
Well, I personally think that like Bryce Young has the overwhelming football IQ. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if he'll be able to stay on the field.
Right.
Anthony Richardson, it's a big question mark for me as to where he is. What do you think about the other two, Dog?
Like kind of again what you're all saying, if just breaking them all down, I like CJ Stroud the best just because, again, like he has close to prototypical height. I want to say he's like 6'3", 214.
Yeah.
And he does have mobility. He doesn't like using it, but we saw it against Georgia. And obviously he's incredibly accurate. Now, the con you can throw against him is obviously if you look at Ohio State these last few years, and I want to give credit to Brian Hartline, who was one of their ex-receivers. He's come back. You look at like the talent they get at wide receiver year in, year out. Like he is throwing to stud after stud after stud after stud. So like he's not going to have that going to certain places. But if you watched him at the combine, and again, I'm not putting that much weight in it because if you watch his games when he played on Saturday, he's so accurate. So like his footwork and everything is so controlled. I agree with Luggs. The thing that stinks for Bryce Young is like his aptitude is like incredibly high. He has that just quick awareness of understanding what defense is doing, knowing where the weakness is, and to funnel the ball there. And he has a strong enough arm. He has enough mobility. Again, he's not going to move around a whole lot, but like it's not so much his ability because I think again, if he was 6'4", he's locked in number one guy. We won't even talk about it. It's
right.
just
Agreed.
because of his height. You worry about him not being able to see over the offensive line, which is legitimate because they know to clog up. The defenses know to clog up his vision, so he has to roll out. And if he rolls out, he's going to get hit, and he's just not going to be durable. It's just durability. It's not his ability to play. Like he's probably the guy you feel most confident in that situation. Levis. He showed 2 years ago under a guy who cut his teeth, Liam Cohen, who's actually now back with the Wildcats. He can play in a pro-style offense. He had Wan'Dale Robinson, who was drafted relatively high. So, like, when he has talent, he produced at a high level for the UK. Just last year, it was kind of like Josh Allen. I'm not saying he's Josh Allen, but I'm saying, like, the last year that Josh Allen played, he had nothing around him. Similar for Will Levis, and on top of it, Will Levis was injured, and he was supposedly getting shot up just to play in those games. So it's hard to just wipe away and like just give him a mulligan on last year. But I can see again, he and Anthony Richardson, I think, are going to have to go someplace and just set and develop. And I get why Anthony Richards is tantalizing because it's just his physical skill and whatnot, but. I think the thing that worries me about him is just usually when guys only start 13 games, history for the most part is not kind to guys with that little experience playing collegiately and then getting bumped up to the pros. So like if he goes somewhere, hopefully they have an Alex Smith situation where he can sit for at least a full year, if not two.
So Will Levis, did he have a mulligan or a mullet? What did you mean by that?
Oh, if I said a mulligan, I meant mulligan.
Well, that's that hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay. What other big moments do you want to? There's so many things. Where do you want to start with the next?
Well, I just wanted to say quickly.
Yeah.
I was glad to see Jason Kelsey re-sign with the Eagles for a 1-year deal, and I think that certainly helps Hurts because he basically runs that offensive line very, very well. So congratulations to him and congratulations to the Eagles. Of the free guys, I thought was a good one, especially for the Eagles.
Yeah, I guess the free agency signings that I liked is the defensive tackle Draymond Jones going to the Seahawks. They had, I believe, 45 sacks last year, so it's not that they were bad. It just adds to what was relatively a strength of the Seahawks last year. He's had 22 sacks over the last 4 years, and just again, it was a strength for the Seahawks last year. It's a strength on a strength, and sticking to the offensive line like Luggs. Andrew Wiley, who was with Kansas City, he's joining Bieniemy with the Commanders. Yeah. He's been fairly durable for his career. He knows Bieniemy's system and also has the flexibility to play tackle or guard. So I like that signing. I don't like the Patrick Peterson signing. I know he played really well for the Vikings last year, but he's going to be 33 playing cornerback.
Yeah.
So you're going against history. You're betting a guy entering 33, 34 is going to still be playing at a high level. So I don't like it. And the other one I didn't like off the top is another offensive lineman for the Eagles who really didn't play a whole lot. He was drafted in the first round a few years ago. Andre Dillard. He was signed by the Titans. He's just had a lot of durability concerns, which is usually the worst kind of free agent to kind of put decent money into, which they did in bringing him in. And he was essentially phased out of the team, who are really good at developing and noticing talent. So it feels like they are admitting they whiffed on him and that he wasn't developing like they wanted to. I'm not saying I'm wrong on that, but it just seems like this is not a guy you'd want to invest money in. So,
well, the other one that I think was a good signing is Javon Hargrave going to San Francisco. You talk about a mean defensive line with Bosa, and Armstead and Kinlaw. Wow. San Francisco, they got to get themselves a quarterback. That's a Super Bowl team waiting to happen. They just need somebody to call the plays. They just need or to execute the plays. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's going to call the plays. But so anyway, I thought, wow, you talk about the rich getting richer. That was crazy.
So you don't like the two options the 49ers have? You think that's not going to work either way?
No,
Wow.
they got to get themselves. If you've got a team built like that, because let's look at it realistically anymore. Teams last maybe 3 years, maybe 4 before everybody either gets injured or has to be paid. San Francisco it's now. They got to do it.
And you're saying Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, no go. I know Purdy's injured and he'll be out for a bit. We don't know how long.
Well,
exactly,
Purdy won't be back till November, they're saying, which means he probably won't play at all next year. Trey, I just don't. I have never seen anything in him that I thought was worth investing in. I'm sorry. He's probably a great kid and a lovely dancer, but we're talking NFL here.
It's the National Football League. T-Dog, what do you think about that arrangement? What's going on there in the Frisco?
Again, like I said, they did sign Sam Darnold, I believe, to a one-year deal.
True.
So again, I've never even coming out of USC. I've never been a big fan of Darnold. It's not that he clearly has the physical talents, but just when you watch him, he played a lot of sandlot at USC. It felt like, and like he's never developed, I think, the skills of the position. He had some moments 2 years ago with Carolina, so I'm not saying that maybe going to Kyle Shanahan they'll figure out how to unlock him. I just feel this deep into his career, the light would have gone on already. And I kind of agree with Luggs. I mean the Hargrave signing was great, but it's kind of like they kind of understand like they're going to have to win through defense, their running game. And, Trey Lance, who I'll admit maybe I was wrong on him coming out because I did like him, but I still think you have to give him a shot at least this year. But to be fair to Luggs, they might look back on this and just look at a super team that's just loaded to the talent on offense and defense. And just because they misidentified their quarterbacks are going to look back without a ring.
I just got some breaking news in my ear here from our crack team. Brock Purdy, 3 months he'll start throwing. 6 months he'll be out. So that puts him, like you say, mid-fall, somewhere in there. We'll see what happens with the Ninaroos.
That's assuming that he comes back 90% of what he was. And I'm sorry, he wasn't great to begin with.
All he does is win 5-0. 5-0.
Well, to be fair to what Luggs is getting at, it's his arm strength. His arm strength wasn't spectacular to begin with. If his arm strength is just affected, like, let's say 15%, it could be a dramatic difference in being a guy who just wins to a guy that can't even be a solid backup. So,
okay. Hey, Luggs, you got some sports of yesteryear. Let's do that. You ready? 29 past the hour. You ready to hit that?
Yes, sir. Go ahead with that fancy music
Do,
thing.
do, 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 do. Go.
All right. This time out on Sports of Yesteryear. 1936, Wales beats Ireland 3-0 in Cardiff to clinch the home nation's rugby championship with a 2-1-0 record. That's right. They only played 3 games. 1954, LPGA title holders championship women's golf. Augusta Louise Suggs wins her second title by 7 strokes over Patty Bird. Also, 1954, Milwaukee Braves future home run king Hank Aaron homers in his debut exhibition. 1967, NFL draft. Michigan State defensive end Bubba Smith, first pick by Baltimore Colts. 1993, 34th SEC men's basketball tournament. Kentucky beats LSU 82-65. And finally, in 2017, the world's oldest golf club, Muirfield in Scotland, votes to admit women as members for the first time in 273 years. That's it for this edition of Sports of Yesteryear.
Well, thank you, Lugs, very much. Fellas, did you ever see Hammer and Hank Aaron play?
I did
Yes, I did. Yeah, at the end of his career. Yeah.
Struck by, he was a rather slight man, was he not? He was not like, your Aaron
he
Judge
wasn't.
of the world.
Yeah, he wasn't a massive guy. Of course, we were in the cheap seats in Atlanta. My Uncle Ken used to, once every year, we'd go to Atlanta to a game. And I saw Bobby Bonds one year play.
Sure, Barry,
had a leadoff home run. It started raining, so they rained the game out, so he got robbed of a home run. But yeah, Hank, I was there when they still had Chief Nakahoma, and they did the whole chop and all of that. That's totally politically incorrect now.
Dude, we're going to have to erase that part of this podcast. You can't talk about that anymore, man. You cannot do it.
I just said you couldn't do it anymore. I mean,
Bobby Bonds. Yes, Bobby Bonds. Yes.
Bobby, Barry's papa.
Yeah, he was good.
He was another slight man.
Yep. But anyway, T-Dog, what else, man? We got some other football.
I just want to
endless.
Continuing our countdown of the draft.
So,
So
the
number seven
right?
pick, we've already hit on some of this, but the Raiders have the 7th pick. I'll ask you all, because I already said what I think. Should they draft a quarterback with the Jimmy Garoppolo signing?
Oh, man.
I think they have to, don't you? Or get through this year and maybe next year. Of course, Caleb Williams won't be available. He will go to whoever's the lowball team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they have to somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't live by, the short term. You got to make a plan, but what that plan is, we'll probably never know.
I'm not saying they need to use the 7th pick on it, but there's some interesting backup guys who I'm not going to say will ever develop into maybe starters, but I think UCLA's Dorian Thompson-Robinson is really intriguing. He started, I believe, at least 3, if not 4 years at UCLA. And Purdue's Aiden O'Connell. I think both those guys are pretty kind of fascinating guys that are at least developmental. Like Desmond Ridder, like you could draft them in the 3rd round and maybe they develop into something long term.
I'd also like, for me, the sleeper in the draft is Max Duggan.
Yeah.
I think that he just needs some seasoning and time. So maybe.
Yeah. So I guess we already kind of seen them draft sign Jacoby Myers. Is there anyone else in free agency that you think the Raiders, like, just kind of thinking of what their roster is, what they should try to go out and sign player wise? You don't have to give a particular player.
If Devontae Adams is upset and doesn't want to be there, that's obviously a big hole. So maybe they ought to think that one through a little bit. I don't know.
I think their defensive backfield. I think they need to shore up either a safety or a corner.
that ties in nicely to my next thing. So, is there a specific like player you think they should draft with the 7th overall pick?
Who's that kid out of Oregon? I had his name.
Yes, Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if they have a shot at him, they should go for it.
I think he should be there. See, Lugs, you and me, simpatico on this one because
Simpatico. Yes.
when I saw his combine 40 where it was sub 4.4, I was like, man, if Al Davis was still alive, they would be like, we have to get Christian Gonzalez. So, and they also compete in a division with Mahomes and Herbert.
Yeah,
so so it's kind of good to get a lockdown corner.
That's tough sledding in that division. Whew.
So, last question though, with that 7th pick, should they trade back?
Oh, it would just depend on what they could get. I don't know if they could get a lot. Do you think they could get a lot? If they could get something, it would make it palatable. I could see it, but I think they need to go ahead and get a defensive player with that pick.
Again, kind of like Atlanta last year. I know it's tempting, but I agree with you. Probably not, just because I don't know how many blue chip players there are, and if they have to trade back to even like 13 or 14, I think Christian Gonzalez definitely is not going to be there. So like they need another pass rusher. They need like you said, a corner. The defensive tackle. I mean, they need a lot.
None of the quarterbacks will be there at 7, will they? No. They'll be all gone.
The weird thing about this is the weird thing about Josh McDaniels. He drafted Tim Tebow, so he's not opposed to quarterbacks he's not opposed to quarterbacks with mobility. So I'm not saying that Anthony Richardson would be off the table if he is there. I just don't know where Anthony Richardson's going. I don't know. I'm not even saying Will Levis won't be there, but I don't know. I don't know if those are the cup of teas of Josh McDaniels. So.
Lugs, do you want to take like a minute and just share some historic moments of Tim Tebow? Got time on that?
Well, I mean, all he did was win for that period of time. What did he win? 7 games in a row or something crazy. Yeah, he wasn't your prototypical quarterback, but you know what? He did better than Russell Wilson.
This is fair with the Denver Broncos. He did do better. He did do better.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. That's kind of crazy. He won a playoff game, didn't he?
Yeah, and for a lot less money and craziness.
And what is Tim doing now? Is he playing? He's not playing baseball,
SEC.
right? SEC
Network.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
all right. Tim Tebow. All right. Anything else, fellas? What else we got going tonight?
I was going to say, unfortunately, and he had a full life, so I'm not, we shouldn't be mourning too sadly, but the passing of Bud Grant.
Absolutely.
I'll let you all, because I'll just give some quick bullet points on his career. Interestingly enough, before he got to professional football, do you know he actually played in the NBA?
Did not, sir.
No.
He played for the Minneapolis Lakers, I believe, in 1950. Was a backup for 2 years and actually won an NBA title.
Dang.
So as a player, then he went on to play in the NFL for a while, and he actually let his contract expire and went up to the CFL, where he played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and then he coached there for 10 years. Won 4 Grey Cups, then went to the Vikings, coached there for 18 years, had a career winning percentage of 62% during that time, won, I believe, 11 divisional titles, and went to 4 Super Bowls. And
he had Joe Cap as his quarterback, and Joe Cap could throw it about 4 feet,
They had Francis Turkington. Now, come on, later. Come on. The original scrambler.
And I just want to say my last day that I couldn't find a good one to send to you all. There is one, but they kind of clipped it. My favorite thing about Bud Grant once he retired is he had an annual garage sale at his house in Bloomington, Minnesota, where he would sell off memorabilia to pay for like his hunting, his hunting equipment.
The man's got his priorities set, doesn't he?
Yeah. No, this is the thing you'll like. everyone always talks about like how like workaholic coaches are. He always got done coaching during the week at 5 so he could have supper. And before he would go into work, he would wake up at 4 a.m. and he would go out and hunt for a few hours before going into the office. So the man always schedule his work life around his hunting. So,
well, I tell you, the things I remember about Bud Grant, it was cold, that tundra kind of thing. Yeah. And Bud Grant would be out there in a windbreaker, perfectly comfortable. Yeah. I mean, the man was a tough human being. I give it to him. Those blue eyes had a lot of fire in them. So,
and you come from an era, no heaters on the sidelines. Let's start with that. The CFL was actually a much more formidable league and more of a competitor than the NFL than it is today. But I do recall this not that long ago when Teddy Bridgewater led the Vikings to that playoff game. And if you recall, they played that season in the University of Minnesota Stadium. And for the coin flip of the playoff game that the Vikings lost, but Bud Grant came out in a polo shirt. It's about 28 below zero and flipped that coin. And there was you wouldn't expect anything else but that. And the other cool thing I heard about him today, and as a matter of fact, he consistently was able to beat Vince Lombardi pretty regularly in the regular season. So one of the few coaches who could claim that somehow. Like games like 10-7, 14-12, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, student body right, student body left, kind of running. They didn't pass the ball in them days.
And it's some tremendous Hall of Famers who played for him, too.
And the last feather in the cap I'll give him, I believe he's still the only guy in the Canadian and Pro Football Hall of Fame. So
get out.
Yep. So Bud Grant, 95, thank you for all the great memories. And just like I said, I didn't get to watch you as a coach, but I just love the NFL films on your garage sales. So,
all right. Anything else? We lost another fella, Felton Spencer, University of Louisville great, NBA player for 12 years. He passed away. The big 7-footer, quiet man. He was just in his 50s, but he was quite a force in his time in the 80s in college and pro ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually got to interview Felton, and he spoke so softly that it was amazing for a man of his size to be as soft and quiet as he was. And his mom was like 6'5". She was on the other end of the spectrum. Felton, get over here.
A little chatty, was she?
Well, I just remember we went to the house to shoot a little cover video, and Felton was in somewhere else in the house. She yelled at him, "Felton, get in here," that kind of a thing. She is tough.
And if you have time, by the way, after you listen to our podcast, check out the Great Britain World Baseball Classic uniforms. If you haven't seen them, they look like they were made with Microsoft Word, or they'd gone to a kiosk in the mall and got the iron-on transfers that say Great Britain in Arial bold font, the preset font on your Microsoft computer. Check it out. Black on gray. It's quite stunning, but then again, it fits the British motif.
Je ne sais quoi, even though that's French. But.
It's like the guy in the Academy Award said the other night. He got up there and accepted his award. He says, "I'm British. I know I'm supposed to say thank you, but because I'm British, I'm just going to say I'm sorry." All right, that's about it, I guess. Bring to a close this edition of Sports and Other Stuff, brought to you in part by Austin Chiropractic. Remember the 5 most dangerous words. Maybe it will go away. If you've had a week back for a week back, well, check it out. Stop in and see our guy. He's there tonight.
Fish. And this week, to mark the birthday of that famous jurist and Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Fish is hosting All Things Baseball, since that was RBG's favorite sport. There will be T-ball home run derby for the youngsters, beer pong for the adults, with peanuts and helmet ice cream for everyone. Come on down this Saturday at 1 p.m. Bring your favorite ball and bat. Fish jokes that his favorite bat is his wife, Estelle. Not too loudly, mind you. So come on down and toast to RBG and a little taste of spring baseball.
All right, we are the Sport Weasels. First in sound, first in service, and first in other stuff. We'll see you next week. So long for now.